My name is Alexandra Barrueta, and I am a researcher at the University of Manchester. I am just finishing my PhD, and I mean, my Viva is next week. I know. So I'm just finishing my PhD in Beyond Net Zero climate strategies. I am also one of the lead researchers on the CORE project, which is it's a big project. It's an interdisciplinary research group across the university, and also I run the nonprofit core, which does related activities. Anger? No, dissonance. So I got really, really tired of realizing that what I was being told and what I was living weren't really matching up. And what I mean by this is we have so much information every day, and we're being told that, pollution and climate change and global warming and that we've destroyed the planet, but no one has really been able to tell us what to do about it, or, what is the actual cause. I mean, we know the cause of it, but like actually what? And so as an individual, I think I just got really frustrated with not being able to find that information. So as an example, I grew up in the Yucatan Peninsula. And if you don't know anything about the Yucatan Peninsula, firstly, you should go because it's beautiful. But also, we don't have any surface water landmarks. And what I mean by that is we don't have lakes or rivers. So all of our water is it's this big underground network, which is really, really cool. It's also not great because it means that if one part of it gets polluted, it all gets polluted. My father is a hydraulic engineer, which means that I grew up knowing just how bad it is and knowing how much fecal matter is in our drinking water. And so I would go to my friend's house and they'd offer me water, and I was appalled that they didn't know, but also how would they know? So who's actually going out there and saying, hey, this water that's labeled drinking water, you probably shouldn't be drinking it because it contains this much particulate. And unless you're a specialized engineer, or your father is, you wouldn't know. And so I started realizing that I had all these questions, is the water safe to drink? Is the air safe to breathe? Who's causing this pollution? What can I do about it? What is a carbon footprint? And no one could answer the questions, so I just decided to answer them myself. And so I did a PhD in it. I think I've had quite a non-traditional academic career, and Sustainable Futures actually played a key bit in it because it was at a Sustainable Futures event that I met my founding partners for the nonprofit that I run. A couple years ago, I was asked to give a talk about my research, and this talk had 3 key points. Point number 1, we have too many labels. We don't need so many labels for sustainability. Rather than coming up with new ones, we probably should reduce the amount and make it more clear what they mean. Point number 2 was that we should probably stop greenwashing. It's not great. And point number 3 was that we can't just copy and paste climate solutions. Just because it works really, really well for us in Mexico doesn't mean it's going to work in Greater Manchester. As a consequence of this talk, I was approached by quite a few people that were interested in kind of applying that hyper-localized climate solution perspective to Greater Manchester. So one of these people was a man named Mike Franks, who runs the Manchester Climate Alliance. Another one was Mike Kaufman, who runs Planet Hydrogen, which is a registered charity. And we sat down, and over multiple meetings and multiple coffees, we tried to figure out, well, what is the solution for Greater Manchester? And more specifically, what is the solution for communities and areas that are currently suffering from fuel poverty? And how can we help? And how can we kind of pool our knowledge and pool our resources and come up with a solution to this problem? And that is kind of how CORE was born. So CORE stands for Community-Owned Renewable Energy. It's a community benefit society. We applied for a tiny little baby startup grant. We got it. And in the year or so that we've been running, it has been overwhelming, the response, the support from, Sustainable Futures, but also the university, from GMCA, from different stakeholders in the fields. Everyone has been so lovely and supportive and encouraging, and it's just really, really given me kind of a flip in perspective from the millennial doom and gloom that I came into the PhD with to, hey, I think actually people care and people want this kind of project to happen. So it's been like I said, overwhelming. It's been touching. It's been inspiring, and I'm really excited to see what happens next. Yeah, so CORE is at its core holistic. And what that means is that we realize that there is an intense need for renewable energy infrastructure in the UK, but specifically we work in Greater Manchester, because the reality is that so many of our climate goals and targets are unachievable if we do not have these infrastructures in place. And I think there's quite a lot of people that are working in this environment. There's quite a lot of companies or nonprofits that are actively trying to get the systems installed. We just hadn't found the right fit for certain communities. And what I mean by this is we have, for example, Octopus Energy, and they're installing heat pumps, and there's government grants for this, and it's great, it's wonderful, it's better than nothing, but a lot of households can't actually afford it, and so it's not happening. In fact, I would argue that the households that need it the most, the communities that need it the most, are also the ones that can't afford to pay that difference. We have companies that are installing solar panel arrays, and they're doing it kind of on a subscription service where you pay monthly. The issue with this is that there are quite a few benefits that you can get from having renewable infrastructure, and the actual communities, or again, the actual homeowners, aren't the ones getting those benefits. Rather, it's investors, and it's mimicking a top-down approach, which is what we want to move away from so that these systems can be more sustainable. On top of installing the actual infrastructure, so on top of actually going in and putting in a heat pump or a solar panel or shallow geothermal array or whatever we deem appropriate for the site, there's a lot of other activities that have to happen. You have to actually speak to the people in the community to understand what they want and what they need. You have to do things like carbon literacy to actually have these conversations and, like, why is it important? Why should we care about reducing our emissions? And we're going to reduce our bills and we're going to heat our buildings, but is it important? Is it important to you, and why? There's a lot of partnerships that need to happen kind of in the background, and that's where we come in. We are working with 3 primary sites across Greater Manchester. So we have one in the north, one in the center, one in the south, and these are what we call community hubs. A community hub is a center where people from all over the community go for different resources. So you have legal aid, you have a food pantry, you have mental health support for men. So things like this that are really, really important. And if they were to disappear, the community wouldn't have anywhere else to go. The problem is that these buildings tend to be massive. For example, the Victoria Bass is an old Victorian building, and it's has glass ceilings, and they're single paned. So it's really, really difficult to heat it, and it's really expensive. So most of the time it isn't. And we're trying to kind of figure out, how do we solve that issue and how do we reduce those bills so that we can continue to keep these services within the community while keeping ownership in the community itself, instead of investors that we don't know or never met. So yeah, it's a lot. Sorry, but it's been great. We're really, really excited about the project, and we've got more sites that we're exploring now. We're looking at gardens, we're looking at schools. We might start looking at hospitals in the future. So it's exciting stuff. I'm one person. I'm just a woman. As Tina Belcher says in Bob's Burgers, I put my bra on one boob at a time, and I can't do everything. And if I did not have the support of everyone, CORE wouldn't exist. If I did not have the support of Karen Lucas at Manchester Urban Institute, we never would have gotten the grant that we needed to do interdisciplinary work. If I didn't have, my fellow research assistants, I'm not an engineer. Like, I can't put together the most functional solar array. But it's as much, I think, about interdisciplinarity as it is about having diversity within those decisions. So when I'm trying to solve a problem, I'm going to look at it from a very specific, my perspective. And if I don't have people in the room that are looking at it from a different perspective, we might not reach the best solution. So I think that it's just so important to have these networks and have this support academically, but also from other stakeholders. Like I said, we've received so much support from, GMCA, for example, or from other nonprofits that are working. They just come and they just say, hey, we're going to have a meeting with you for free, and we're going to tell you everything we've done and everything we've learned, because we just want to support you. From our graphic designer, who's the most talented, like Luke Knight came up with all of our branding, all of our logos, and he did it while he was a student. And so it wouldn't exist. Like, take any single one of us away and it can't work. It's a good question. I would say, don't box yourself in. I think, well, no, I know, and I promise that there are going to be enough people in the world that will do that for you, you don't have to. I think when we work in academia, it's really, really easy to have blinders on and to kind of think this is the way that things are done, or this is the way I have to do things, or I have to be purely a researcher. And we all exist, one, with intense imposter syndrome, and two, in this publish or perish cycle where you have to constantly churn out academic papers. And one of the most common conversations I have with my peers is, we really, really want real world impact. We really want to take our research and kind of apply it and make a difference and see a change. Because why else would you read hundreds of academic papers? I mean, some of them are good, but honestly, most of them aren't particularly fun. We know that. And the reason we do it is because we want to have that impact. We want to help. And if we're putting ourselves into these boxes, and if we're thinking, it's not going to work, I'm just a researcher, I'm just an academic, then it won't. Because you have to just get out there and you have to just try. Because the worst thing that can happen is that it doesn't work, and then you can try again. And this one is not very popular, but I think it's equally as important. Hone those communication skills. I think the biggest asset that CORE has right now, as I said, is our support network. And so that networking element of it, that communication element of it, take advantage of the class that your university offers on public speaking. Talk to everybody about your research and learn how to talk about it to anybody, even non-academics, because those skills are going to get you into those rooms. And those rooms are where these decisions are being made, and that's where you're going to have impact. And if you've spent this much time researching something that you're passionate about, it's really, really important that we hear your voice. So it's really, really important that you do all that. And yeah, just do it. And if you fail, you try again.